Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello, John. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
I'm glad you're here as well. We're going to be talking about one book, and my oh my, what a title that is. To Care for Peace, a global mandate to secure the second human evolution in perpetuity. And it goes on to say, the process is the solution. I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy this interview. But
Thank
first,
you.
before we get to your book, I'd like to know more about you, who you are, what makes you tick, where you're from, and how you got to the point of writing such a book like that.
Well, it's been a lifetime experience by the time I was in high school, the Vietnam War was raging, and my father had signed me up in the United States Coast Guard Reserves, and I was lucky. A lot of my buddies went to the war, and I got to go to the San Francisco Bay, to an island in the bay where I went to boot camp. But then after boot camp, I was a hospital corpsman trainee in the United States Coast Guard Reserves. That's a big pile of words. And it was absolutely wonderful because at that time I realized the value of caring for peace, because I felt peace while I was caring for these guys who were coming back from the Mekong Delta. I mean, they were injured, they were sick, they had some pretty weird diseases, that they got over there. And, we had to take care of these guys, and they were so grateful. And at the end of the day, I was exhausted, but I was exhilarated, and I couldn't figure out what the word was, because it wasn't happiness. It wasn't having a nice car and going and getting some groceries and having a great meal or having a new girlfriend. It wasn't any of that. It was just a feeling. And I decided to call that peace. Just in short, care for peace started by me realizing that that's what it is. I was caring for peace.
Hmm. There was a lot of talk of peace back in those days, and I do remember them, even though I'm Canadian,
That's
I took
right.
an interest in things like world peace, obviously, and the music that I listened to in the 60s and into the 70s, a lot of it was talking to what was going on in the war and the unjust war that it was. So I was one of those long-haired guys that, had a peace symbol, and I still do. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you on that. What an interesting story that's how it came about for you. So when did you write this book?
I started it about 50 years ago, but I finally started writing it for real after my nonprofit organization called Care for Peace went to Myanmar and built a clinic, a community development and health center clinic in probably the most remote place in the entire world. I don't think anywhere in Africa as remote as where we went in Myanmar. That's Burma, just to the left of Thailand. And it squeezed in between Thailand and Bangladesh, and a little India and China. I mean, it's nowhere. We were building this place, and it was beautiful. It ended up just becoming a perfect showcase model for 250 of these that we were going to, and we still are, build throughout this country that had hardly any roads. It was all out back or jungle or whatever. And all of a sudden, the military coup occurred, took over our government friends. It took over our ability to even go into the country and work with the people we were already working with. And so I was cut off this wonderful project that my nonprofit organization was doing. And so what else can I do now? So I decided to write a book.
Hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the military coup, how that affected you. Obviously, it did, because I'm familiar
Yeah,
with Myanmar and
yeah,
what's been going on there. So
yeah.
when you first went in there, the government was stable?
Well, yeah. I mean, we were in Myanmar during a window of opportunity that was established by Aung San Suu Kyi, this Nobel Prize winner who just opened up the country to democracy and opened it up to a free market economy. And so we ended up getting connected to the president of the country and Aung San Suu Kyi. And so we worked at the highest level of the government to get started. So, and in fact, the president of the country Paytek Kin, at the time, had his number one doctor, medical doctor, Dr. Dan Singh, fly to California and see if we were legit. And he came out and heck, we showed him one of our clinics here and some of the hospitals. Um, we went to Myanmar. He started a nonprofit at the same time we started our nonprofit, and it ended up becoming this unbelievable opportunity that was in the window of opportunity before it shut. When Trump had his little gathering there, in the Congress, where he took over the place, within about 26 days, the military guys in Myanmar says, "Oh, this is our chance. Let's take back our country." It was just the most awful thing that happened to the country and to the world, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, Care for Peace. I believe Care for Peace is very, very much a part of everybody I've met all over this world. And the ones who are not caring for peace, I hope they are gone soon.
Do you want to talk about some of the things that are in your book?
First of all, everything I wrote on the front cover and on the back cover. So I use it as my calling card. And I say, well, if you don't read anything in between the covers, it's okay, because by the time you read the front cover and the back cover, you got it all. It's the gist. It's the stuff that you need to read. And basically, To Care for Peace came from that experience in the United States Coast Guard, but it also, and I describe this in the book, is something that I noticed because I work with nurses all over the United States. I'm a healthcare facility planner and a management and operation planner. So for 50 years, I helped hospital owners plan how they were going to operate a hospital. And then I was helping them plan building the hospital. So I have planning in my heart, my spirit, my career. And I ended up working for some of the biggest corporations in America: Columbia HCA, Kaiser. I did a lot of work with Kaiser. I traveled all over the world thanks to Kaiser. And Catholic Healthcare West, the Adventist group in the South, the Deep South. So all of these places I worked, I met nurses. I met a lot of nurses. And guess what? They already know what it means to care for peace. And I explain in the book that, okay, it was my big aha for me. Wow, I got this new word, peace, that comes from caring. That's the whole secret. But the bottom line is, I just discovered it. It was already there. And I've met nurses literally all over the world. I'm talking about in Nigeria and Curacao, Bahrain and the Persian Gulf, all over Europe, you name it. And in Thailand and in Myanmar, Vietnam. I mean, I have met nurses all over the world, and I will tell you, most of them already know what it means to care for peace. And and then of course, I named my nonprofit organization, and I say I name my, please understand that there's a bunch of incredible people who were part of this process of developing Care for Peace, the organization, including University of California, Berkeley, the practicum that is responsible for helping companies try to figure out how to be a nonprofit organization that is international and not under sanctions. And we got our international nonprofit organization status with the help of University of California, Berkeley. University of California, Davis helped when we were in Myanmar with some of the assessment processes of what we do to help the people deal with their mangroves and the problems that were occurring in the environment because of where we are, because of what needed to be taken care of while we were caring for the people. How do we care for peace in the environment, peace of the people? How do we care for peace of every living thing? And all that's in the book too. Now, the big concept, the big one, occurred to me, and I write this quite a bit in the book. It occurred to me when I was traveling in India, and I was in the back of a air-conditioned taxi from New Delhi to Agra. It's about, I think, about a 3 hour drive, or at least it took 3 hours for us to get there the way we were driving, because at one or more points we would be in major traffic jams. And one time I was in a traffic jam and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't see any road. I couldn't see the sides. I could see some of the tops of the buildings, but mostly it was those big buses with lots of baggage on the top and people sitting on top of the baggage and hanging on the side, you name it. I don't know why they weren't going anywhere, neither were we, but I noticed that I wasn't hearing New York traffic honking horns. Nobody was honking a horn. It was quiet. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's because I'm inside this air conditioned car. No, the guy opened the taxi driver opened his window several times to buy things that the little kids on the street were trying to sell, like those little wreaths that you hang over the rear view mirror. So, but I realized that, wait a minute, this is the end of something. This is the end of the first human evolution. Holy crap, what did I think? So just like Care for Peace, all of a sudden I realized that the first human evolution had ended. And at the end of my 1 year trip in Bahrain, I put it together. I realized that the end of the first human evolution occurred during that time at the Vietnam War, at, and then, but before that, even it was that mutually assured destruction, the MAD. It's when we had discovered the world. It's when we started the big peace movements. Wait a minute. That was the end of the first human evolution. What we're now in, I realized later, I kind of developed this because the ideas just kept coming. I said, we're now in this place that we're flopping around like fish on a deck. We don't know what we're doing. We're getting these leaders who don't know what they're doing, who don't realize that our job is to care for peace. It's not to kill for peace. And our job is to realize that care is something that we do with our hands and our hearts and our heads. And peace is a dynamic feeling that we have in our own spirits that we can share with other people. It is peace that is not sitting on top of a mountain and saying, or the place between two wars or after war. That's not peace. Peace isn't, what, during the reign of terror after the revolution in France? Oh, during the Reconstruction in America after the Civil War? Oh, you mean after the First World War when Germany was so under the thumb of the Europe that, we created that horror called Hitler, I mean, so what basically happened was this big idea came from sitting in a traffic jam in the middle of India and realized that, okay, this is the suspended human evolution that we're in, and we got to do something with it. We got to use my planning tools that I've been using to design hospitals and how hospitals should run, and how to communicate with architects and engineers and doctors and nurses and all the different people that you have to communicate with to get to the point where you can build something that patients are going to use. Oh, you got to talk with the patients too. The whole process of planning is absolutely not here in the planning, the global order that we need to plan for the second human evolution. And that's my idea. It's up to us to plan the second human evolution. It is our job to not play God, but to bring our gods with us and do everything we can. Bring everything we've learned with us. Bring all the academics that are out there with us. Bring the good leaders that we have had who are even still alive, and even the ones who are dead. Let's bring what they have with us and design the second human evolution. And then this is where I come in. Let's plan it. How are we going to do it? And that's the essence of my book. It's care for peace, because if we understand that caring for peace, the dynamic activity of thinking, feeling, and touching, caring for dynamic peace, that feeling you get when you're helping people, the feeling that they get when you're helping them. That's what you bring to the table. That's what you bring to the discussion. Because I'll say that when I've worked in countries like, okay, when I was in Bahrain, I'd be in a meeting with 12 or 13 different people around the table, and these people came from all different countries. They all spoke different languages, but we all talked English when we were planning something. So I'd have a nurse who came from Nigeria. I had a doctor who came from Rwanda. I had lots of medical doctors and ancillary people who came from England, Australia, New Zealand, and they're all sitting around talking. But I will say the number one thing they brought to the table was the spirit. And that's just something that's inside of all of us. We have care for peace. I've seen it in groups of people, in individual, and every now and then there's someone who's just not there yet. And you know, it's interesting. Those people get it. By the time we're finished a 2-year effort designing a hospital, because that's how long it takes to design a hospital, these people are with us. And they're saying, thank you for that wonderful opportunity. I really learned something. And I'm thinking, yeah, you learned what you already knew. That's the best lessons you already know. And I'll tell you, these lessons that I talk about in this book, you already know. And that's why I say it's my calling card. You know, when you read it, you're gonna go, oh yeah, that's a good point. For instance, I have a technique that you can use when you're trying to talk with a bunch of people and everybody has different opinions. Well, the idea is to kill the opinions. If you want to talk about an issue, leave your opinions out there because you've got to bring your brain. You got to bring your ability to listen and to listen more and to throw out ideas and take ideas that are put in the center between you and whoever, not opinions. Opinions are things that you've got up here, you know, in your head. You don't want to have all that crap. You want to have the discussion right here in the middle of the table. So you're talking about that. Okay. Now, the tool is called from to. Okay. You can put quotes around it. You can make a capital F and a capital T with a little hyphen if you want. From to. That's because what we want to do is we want to say, well, okay, where'd we come from? Well, the first human evolution was that, well, we killed for peace. Okay, what's the second human evolution going to be? Well, I think we got to go to somewhere where we're not fighting and killing each other. Well, hey, would you talk to me about this Ukraine thing that's going on? Okay, let's use that as an example. What happened? What are we doing now? Look at this Gaza thing in Israel. And you know, people I talk with, Jews and Palestinians and Arabs. By the way, I mean, I worked in Bahrain for a year. I worked with Arabs and Jews, and I worked with all sorts of people. These people are wonderful people. Guess what? They all care for people. That's something that is built into their spirit. It's built into their religions. Very important. The Bible, what Muhammad, praise be to his name, is something that we have already in those religions. So the people bring that to the table and they know what it means to care for peace. So the process of getting people away from the opinion and into the from to discussion can be brought not just from first human evolution to the second human evolution, but okay, let's talk about population. Is population something that we can talk about? Oh, it's not population control. Wow, I hate those words. Well, guess what? People hate population control all over the world. You know, it's just something that people don't like. So I was in Myanmar talking to about 14 people about this population control idea, and they didn't like it. And I said, well, why don't we just look at the future and call it population continuity? They immediately got it. They immediately got it. Just like everything else I've said, it's already there because population continuity is a word for the second human evolution. So let's go from where we are now, thinking about population control, to what we need to think about in this second human evolution. Let's think about continuity. We can take it right down to our individual scale where we replicate ourselves. So my wife and I, each of us had a child, as in we have two sons. And then I got fixed. Okay. That's that's my immortality. That's my offer to the continuity of myself and my wife and my family and the world. So it's a global concept that needs to start from caring for peace to the second human evolution. Yeah, I had to really pad it, to because it probably should be only 4 pages long, by the way, and the 4 pages long are it's about 240 pages. The 4 pages of long are the four templates. These are the Care for Peace templates. And this is the personal template. This is in the book because this is what it is that I put my name on, my spirit. And so I look at it and it says the personal template, my prime directive for myself is to care with my heart and with my hands. My attitude is to do no harm and to say and to do good things. My goal is peace with myself. So that's myself. But then I look at relational as in with other people. And I've got three categories for that too. The value of that is to care about and for all living things, to help relieve pain and suffering of all others, and peace with humanity. The bottom line for me is peace with myself. The bottom line for me and humanity and others is peace with humanity. And then finally, with the global environment, that's the third major category. My prime directive, as it comes to the environment, is to care for the environment of the world, to protect the balance of nature and peace with earth. That's it. Okay, that's the first one. Now, I'm not going to go into the next ones because the next one is the relational. That's the relational prime directive. The third one is very important. It's the cultural prime directive. And the cultural prime directive is because I've always had problems with Karl Marx and the idea that to everyone according to their need, from everyone according to their ability. There's something missing here. And as a lot of people in Russia realized, the thing that's missing is a spiritual side. So we have to figure out how to balance the physical and the spiritual process of caring for peace. And so I did a third template that really drills into that process. And then the final template is the organizational template. And when I say organization, I mean government organization, religious organization, belief systems organizations, you name it. It's what we need to do in our organizations to take what our personal prime directives were and put them out to the world. So, yeah, I mean, my book is, what is it, 200? I don't know how thick the darn thing is. I can't. Is that about it? But in the book, I've got these. Oh, this one is black and white. Oh well, what the heck? And those were the prime directives. But that's it. But basically, it's not even a how-to book. It's a what is book. because, you know, we got to get started. And we start with something called pre-planning, pre-planning, not even planning. I do more pre-planning than anything else because by the time I'm finished pre-planning, the architects come in and the people who actually do the job come in. I get a heck out of there. So, and my perfect example of that is going to Myanmar and designing and planning that wonderful community development and health center that is up and alive today and doing 10 times better than I ever imagined they would do. But I left and they're doing great. So I'm a pre-planner. I'm even more narrowly focused than a planner because I'll let the architects come in and actually draw straight lines because I don't draw straight lines. Yes, yes. Non-government organization. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I'll tell you, I just, that was a big aha moment for me to get to Myanmar and see all these different. Bill and Melinda Gates is there. I mean, they're all over, and and they're quiet. The one that we really came up uh, was the Medicine Sans Frontieres, because we kept sending people there, and I contacting Medicine Sans Frontieres, Doctors Without Borders, and giving them, places that they needed to go. We were working fairly close to where the Rohingya were, and not only what were they working, but United Nations was working, and we met in person with the director of the food program, who was in charge of feeding all the people in the compounds where the where the Rohingya were living. And so the NGOs are all over, and I'm so proud of being one. That the one thing that did uh, kind of caused me concern was that each of those uh, organizations were kind of like in their own silos. Man, they were helping, but they were helping in their own way. They were not joined with other organizations. They were doing things by themselves, and that's not the best. The best is if they all find a way to at least dovetail and work together and understand the problems that exist, because the problems aren't just the ones that they are there to solve. An example of that is my father was let's see, a maternal and child health data management professor at the University of Hawaii for about 30 years. He was also hired by the governor of Hawaii, as well as Region 9, which is everywhere in the Pacific Ocean, to do some consulting in Micronesia. So he flew to Micronesia, to these little islands, and he said his job was maternal and child health. How do we deal with the fact that there were women who were dying and babies who were dying? Maternal and child mortality was really high. And my dad went and he says, this is not the question that we should be asking. We need to ask, how can this small island that has a certain number of people that can only the island can only support a certain number of people. Why can't we figure out a way so that we can reduce maternal and child health, but also make sure that we don't overpopulate this small island? My God, I learned more from my dad about this whole process, because he really understood public health and extrapolated for me how we got to look at that little island and then blow that whole idea up that he was coming up. And guess what? He ended up having many more um, midwives on the islands, and also starting the whole process, which he had heard about. He was an expert at maternal child health data management. So he, like me, he was like a pre-planner. He made sure that the other elements were involved too. And that not just meant the midwives, but also teaching girls more, teaching about birth control, teaching about birth spacing for girls as they get older. And, they're doing fine. And countries that are doing the birthplace spacing and the birth planning are doing much better. So, yeah, there's a lot that we can do to merge at least the goals of these non or not the non or government organizations. And what we did was we actually went in and worked with the government first. We went as an NGO right to Napata and worked with Aung San Suu Kyi's team of people separately, really not as much group meetings. There were group meetings, but mostly it was the individual, lots of individual meetings. We spend 3 days there so that we could see somebody on Friday and somebody on Saturday and somebody on Sunday and go great restaurants too. So yeah, that's Napatal and Yangon. I mean, these don't get me started talking about restaurants because those. Yeah, yes, you do. Yeah. Yeah. Mm, right, right. I'm, mm, right. Mm, mm. I was waiting for that question. Thank you. And I promise to your audience, he did not prime me. Okay. I didn't know in advance that he was going to ask that because it is a self-serving question. And here's why. Our secret of being able to deal with this is global podcasters like you, John, because you're not government. You're not media per se. You're not any of these organizations that are out there trying to change things. No, you're communicating. You're talking to a whole bunch of people. And I've seen your website. You're talking to people all over the place. Where you're in Nova Scotia and you're talking to people. There was some guy in Australia you were talking about. I mean, yeah, your reach is without borders. There's nothing that is more important than you global podcasters to spread the word and bring the people in. Because, yeah, there's people like Trump and Putin and Hitler. I mean, there are people like that all over, but we're not going to be able to go deal with them per se, but we can damn well get our kids trained to know what the heck is going on. And we do that by doing what you're doing. And because that's something that we can talk about, that's what we are talking about. When people start saying, well, what do you think about global warming? I say, well, let's talk global warming, but don't think I'm an expert. I can talk about it. We've got to talk about it. I'm talking about it all the time on these podcasts. I've got one group of people that I'm really focused on, and that is the global podcast. That's why you and I are talking. And then there's another subgroup I'm talking about, and it's the people who are really focusing on global warming and environmental destruction. Okay. And I'm weeding out all the others. I have to because there are cooking podcasts and how to tie your shoes podcasts. I just don't have time for that. I only have time, frankly, to do what you and I are doing right now, and that is we're discussing, we're trying to pass the word, we're trying to share what it is. And one thing, I would love it if we can get the world of people who listen to podcasts to understand that there's something called the first human evolution and it died. And here's why it died. And here's why we are in the suspended human evolution, because we still have people dragging their feet from the first human evolution, like Putin and Trump and, Bolsonaro. There's a whole bunch of people that were out there, and somehow we let them be leaders. So, that I can't really do anything about that. But what I can do is put some words out there and put some ideas, the from to idea, the idea of how we take a step back. Oh, let's take a step back even further. Let's get back to commonality. Don't talk to me about abortion because you're going to bring your opinion about abortion. I'm going to bring my opinion about abortion, and we're going to have an abortion fight. So, no, what you have to do is you have to back up to commonality. And what's commonality? I'll tell you what commonality is: the major migration problem across the Mediterranean. As you pointed out, the problem at our southern border, and at our northern border and your southern border. I mean, it's like we need to talk about the population situation. I don't even call it a problem, although I just did. So I think that it's framing the sentence, framing the process. And that's why at the bottom of the front cover of my book, I write the process is the solution, because you have to have the right process. Pre-planning is a process, and the approach to pre-planning is a process. There's a whole pile of process that you have to do before you even start the planning process. And if we have in our brains that the process is the solution, we might say, oh, wait a minute, I'm raising two kids. They're really, wait a minute, how do I raise two kids? The minute you use the word how, then the answer, I will tell you, is always a process. Here's how you raise children. Well, it's a process. And forget that AT&T slogan that was the system is a solution. No, the system is something that you have way down. And if you don't do a good job with your process, you'll never get the system. So the system is not the solution. The process is the solution. And you're going to feel that process is the solution idea in your life in so many ways. How do I get to the market? Oh no, how can I buy this food if it's going to be twice as expensive every darn time I go to the grocery store? Well, maybe I won't eat steak. Maybe I'll do that idea vegetarian. Maybe I'll eat some vegetarian stuff. Oh, so my wife and I now don't eat steak. We eat chicken and probably won't be able to do that for very much longer. But, the process is the solution. It's on the front cover of the book. As they say, you don't have to read the book. Just read the front cover and the back cover, and then go to the pages that have the templates, because those templates will help guide you and guide your relationships and guide your thoughts about your spiritual and your physical and guide your organizations so that you know what you need to have before the approach to pre-planning. That's good. That's good. Mm. Interesting. Yeah. Well, it could be used very much like our forefathers used a Sears and Roebuck catalog. The pages each could be used in the outhouse. So I would say that if they don't have anything else to do with it, they can use the pages in their outhouse. I uh, I don't know what they're going to get. And it's interesting you talk about music. Here's a quick little story. When I was at the groundbreaking in our clinic, for our clinic in Myanmar, okay? Whole pile of dirt in the middle of nowhere in the outback in the area where it took us hours and hours just to get there. It's the groundbreaking. The monks are sitting there, and thousands of children from the school were there, but there was no music. And I said to Hla Kyi, the man I was with at the time who helped start this whole nonprofit organization, I said, when we come here for the opening, there's going to be music and there's children are going to sing. Well, I wrote a song driving all the way back from that location all the way down to get an airplane out. When I got back to California, I went to the Marin a cappella singers and I sang the song that I wrote on the way back to the airport, right? I just stood there. I didn't have a guitar or a ukulele or anything. I just sang, hold my hand and walk with me. Okay, so, and then they sing and then I sang the next verse, and then they sing it, and then I left. Well, these girls proceeded to make a song out of what I gave them. This simple, simple song that I gave them. And they ended up liking it so much that they got an arranger. See, this is me. I come up with the idea and the process, and then someone takes it. Well, by the way, on my website, we have made sure that you can actually watch them singing the Care for Peace anthem. And it gives me goosebumps. I said, I wrote that? What? it's just it's just unbelievable to to see what people do with things you give to them. So to your question of what those people do when they get my book, what should they do with it? I don't know. Maybe they should just have it sitting around. Maybe somebody will look at the cover and say, "Oh, I've seen that peace sign before," and it'll make them think peace. You know, what people do with things. What you're talking about lyrics and how did they even listen? Well, sometimes they do listen. Give peace a chance, man. When that song came out, I don't think I listened, but shoo, I heard. I didn't really even hear the words that Lennon had written as the main body of the song until years later. I couldn't even repeat it. Nothing is doing what. Oh, oh yeah, oh yeah. I saw them. Yeah, yeah. Uh, careforpeace.org. It's just uh well, first of all, you can see a very, very short video of me and our second board chairman, Dr. Donald P.K. Chan, talking about what Care for Peace is all about and what we did in Myanmar. You can also see some of the children in Myanmar. You can see pictures of our clinic in Myanmar. So it's just a simple site for people to go to if I'm talking with them and they don't even know where Myanmar is. So I have them go to the site, and because there is a map on it, you can actually see where it is. A lot of people just simply don't know where Myanmar is. And if you say Burma, they think of Rudyard Kipling for some reason. I thought he was more India, but there's just people don't know where it is. So it's a it, they can go and they can take a look at it. There's also some very good photographs there that um, were taken by uh, Dr. Chan's daughter, El Chan, who is a crackerjack. Uh, what do you call it? She does event planning for big companies like Google and you name it. I mean, El Chan, El Chan. Just really, right. And she's the one who took the video of her father and me talking and sharing what we did. So, but they can definitely read the back cover, because the back cover is, as I say, having observed human evolution as an international healthcare planner, I have come to several conclusions. The first human evolution of unlimited growth and greed that began in Africa 2.5 million years ago has run its course. I won't read the rest, because you have to go out and get the book. Oh, or go. Oh, well, actually, you can read the whole back cover by going to Amazon, and it's so So I say, uh, yeah. Let's see. I think a few people got the Kindle last week, but that was the first time in about 6 months that anybody did anything. Nobody's buying the book. As I say, it's my calling card. It allowed me to sit down and get my thoughts out. And now because of that, I can sound partially coherent in these podcasts, but I'll let your audience decide that for themselves. I am writing a second book, but the problem is I've only got the cover. I just So I got to get more toilet paper put in between the covers, you know. Okay. Well, I'm going to recite the first sentence in the preview of the book. And I'll let you decide whether it's a good pitch or not. And here it is. To care for peace might not be the secret of life, but it is as close to the secret of living there is. Let me say that again. To care for peace may not be the secret of life, but it's as close to the secret of living there is. And you, podcast, global podcaster, John Christian. Well, I'm the big April Fool's joke. Thank you. I think you can taste it. You too. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you like what I do here on Tell Me About Your Book, then please consider hitting that like button and leaving a comment. You can also subscribe and ring that bell because I release 2 episodes per week, one on Wednesdays and one on Saturdays. And if you are an author, I would love to hear from you. Until such time, keep on writing and be kind to one another.